Welcome to the Homegrown Podcast. I'm your host, Liz Hazelmeyer, along with my husband, Joey.
Good afternoon.
And together we hope to educate, inspire, and equip you in your pursuit of true nourishment. Today's podcast sponsor is Ancestral Supplements. I placed my first order with this company back in 2021, and I have been loving it ever since. I took their fish egg supplement during pregnancy as well as their beef liver, and I have continued the beef liver into my postpartum experience. I love them because they are the founder and leader of the beef organ supplement movement. They source from regeneratively raised cattle in New Zealand. They are third-party lab tested, which means there are no heavy metals, and they have a 60-day guarantee on all products. I have also recently started taking their Fem Enhancement product because TMI, but I'm 9 weeks postpartum and my cycle is already back. So that is going to help me with hormone balance, libido and fertility support, menstruation cycle regulation, energy, immune health, cartilage, joint and collagen health, anti-aging, and mood boosting. Okay, I'm taking that along with the beef liver as well. And good news is all of our listeners get 15% off when they use the code HOMEGROWN at checkout. And you also have that 60-day money-back guarantee. So there really is no risk in upping your health this year in 2025. So check out Ancestral Supplements at ancestralsupplements.com. And again, use the code HOMEGROWN at checkout. Today's guest is Melissa Ferguson. Melissa is a best-selling author of several books. She also lives on a homestead in Tennessee with her husband, her 4 children. They have lots of animals. And she has like a super idyllic Instagram, which I was just crazy nerd scrolling before we hopped on. So Melissa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited because I love talking to other moms who not only have lots of kids and are pursuing this like very intentional lifestyle, but you also have this major creative outlet of being a best-selling author. And I think that that's so cool. And so I'd love to hear not only your journey into both of those roles as mother and also author, but also just talk about some of the ways you're building this life that you truly love. So let's dive in and start wherever you want to start your story.
Oh, wow. Well, the story of my life is what I'm hearing. This story began, I guess, in 2011. I had just finished my master's degree. I went to seminary actually, and I got a master's degree in biblical studies. And I just gotten into a doctorate program in Chicago, but my husband and I were trying to deal with how do we navigate, because that would have been a lot of steps back for him career-wise, for me to try and move forward career-wise. And then I just started thinking about like the reality of down the road. Eventually I wanted to have kids, but also I preferred to stay home with my kids one day in the future. But I also would like to be a professor, but I also, and it's like, well, wait a second, how do I try and juggle these? So anyways, in the midst of that, I ended up turning down the doctorate degree because I realized that I needed to think through some things. And my husband, right after I graduated, ended up getting a job. It was supposed to be like 6 weeks in Ohio, where he was supposed to oversee the remodeling of an entire like low-income housing apartment complex. And it was supposed to be a short job. It was supposed to be like 6 weeks. And he said, you can go with me or you could move to this new town we were planning to move to right after I'd graduated. And I said, well, I'll go with you and live in the extended stay with you. And, what else do I have to do? So that'll be fine. And I want to be with you. We didn't have kids yet, no responsibilities. So I did. But the reality of what that meant was he would be gone for like 12 hours a day. And I would be in an extended stay with not even like a kitchen and no money and no friends and no job. And I would just like walk in circles like around the extended stay for, entertainment. And one day it turned out that Twilight had come on, and it was a big thing back then, and it played for like 10 minutes and then it turned off. And of course there's all the like half the whole world thinks it's ridiculous and half loves it. Right. And I was just, I turned it off after 10 minutes. My husband came back. We went rock climbing in the evening. So we went rock climbing. And then it kept running through my head, the plot. It was like it'd gotten to me. So I ended up, what else was I going to do? I ended up walking over to the Walmart next door and I got the book. And then I read through the series really quickly. And a couple weeks later, some things were happening, but a couple weeks later, I ended up at a grocery store and I saw a girl of all things checking out with like a Twilight themed tattoo on her neck. And I thought to myself, it is this author is so influential on people through her stories that this person decided to make that decision. And then I thought, well, I wonder what it would look like if I tried to write fiction with my own messages and stories that tried to uplift or bring light to the world. So I had a computer and I had time and I had no money. So it was kind of the perfect combination, extreme loneliness. And I ended up, that 6-week job ended up us living in low-income housing on an air mattress for a year. And I spent a year on that air mattress, basically writing for like 12 hours a day. And I absolutely fell in love with it and told my husband pretty much a weekend, we were on a walk and I said, I think I just stumbled into something and I think I'm never going to stop. And it turned out to be true. So here I am years later writing, and it turned out to be the biggest blessing because this is definitely, it turned out what I wanted to do. I, more than get my doctorate and go work and try and juggle, I love staying home, being able to like be with my kids. We homeschool, but do activities, have all these adventures, but also I get to write as well. And that has been just such a dream for me.
Wow. I love that. I remember when Twilight was popping off, and yeah, it was very like almost, it was like a cult following, very similar to like, maybe like a Harry Potter or something like that. But it is in this romantic, it's all about the love triangle. And for all these young girls, it's like, is that really what we want to be promoting? Like, is that really what we want your little immature hamster brains to be thinking about? No, it's
right.
not.
The 110-year-old men.
Yeah. There's a lot there. I never read the books, honestly, but I did watch all the movies because they were like really big. And yeah, I love that you saw something in the wild almost, and you were like, you know what? I wonder if I could do that. And you totally did. I think that's so cool. So talk to me about your writing. You have this now established sort of like vision of your career, and then what did that look like when you did start to have kids and start your mothering journey then?
Well, so the career, there was a long road between starting to write a book and then getting publication and then motherhood. So I went through about 4 years of writing that book without really having a clue what I was doing. And then like another 4 or 5 years of rejections before I got my first book deal and my first agent. And once I got my first book deal and agent, that things kind of started rolling in. So, and then motherhood happened. It actually kind of worked at the same time. I had spent 4 years writing this book kind of on my bed, kind of in the corner, and no one really knew about it. Or they got to the point where they wouldn't ask me about it because it was almost like pathetic, like bless her heart, the pathetic girl writing in a room. Some imaginary story. And so, but when I had my twins, I used to be a teen coordinator at the YMCA. And when I had my twins, I quit that. And it took about, how old were they? They were 13 weeks old when I realized I really wanted to like also make this book thing happen. I'd been rejected by everyone under the sun via email. It was time to like be rejected in person at a writing conference. And so I ended up, we packed up the twins and drove 8 hours overnight and took them with me to my first writers conference, like rolled out at 8 a.m. And I did my first pitch session, which is this very overwhelming, funny, crazy interview where you get 15 minutes with like one agent and you spent all your hopes and dreams. Actually, that's the initial chapter of this book that I wrote that's coming out in February because it was such an insane experience that it needed to end up in a rom-com. But that was my experience. And then, so I'd like be pitching and then like go hide and go nurse the twins and then go pitch and then hide and then go be rejected some more and then hide. And so it was pretty chaotic, but really actually both things ended up kind of going at the same time. The birth of my twins And then my first agent, I ended up winning the conference award there, and that led to my first agent. And so it was a simultaneous thing, and it was a huge blessing in my life. So
That's amazing. Were you ever scared that both things were happening at the same time?
no, I think for me, I I went from teaching or not teaching, hanging out with teens all day long, or all afternoon long with the YMCA. And so it was a very social job. And before that, I was an ESL teacher to adult immigrants and refugees, which also was a super social job. And so really what was harder was suddenly having two infants and being at home in the pure quiet, and also not having yet established like a mom group, or any sort of mom life. I feel like I was the first of my family. I was the first of my friends, many of my friends. And so I didn't really have a community built up for that. And so it actually was really great to have a both and right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have, for people who are like in that position right now, what were some of the ways that you eventually cultivated that community or found something to fill that? Because that is a really hard thing to wade in. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it's hard to make yourself get out, especially in motherhood where you're really tired, sometimes, and things are just not it's not necessarily easy, right? Like it's harder sometimes to leave the house than it is to just stay in the house and deal with the chaos inside the house. And so forcing yourself to get out, though, especially when you're not sure if you're going to reach the reward for the effort of going out, is like the challenge. But I ended up trying out a MOPS group at a church, and it wasn't for me, but I did run into a couple people that became friends, and then we kind of like quit together and then became friends. And so I don't know. I think then before you know it, I think MOPS was a good jumping off point, though, because you kind of get to know other people between that and church groups. That's what happened. And then now with homeschooling, we are part of a wild and free group. And so we have a hiking group, we've got co-ops, and there are too many groups to choose from at this point. And you just can really get pretty niched down to like what you really want to do, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. The mothers of preschooler. I remember my mom always was like, you got to get in a MOPS group. And I don't know why I was always intimidated to join one. I didn't join one. But I do think they're a great resource. Even if you don't end up sticking for like the full session, you can at least like find a couple people and, like you said, kind of quit together and form your own group and your own hangout. So that's super cool. At what point then, because I know you lived in the suburbs at some point, and I don't think we've gotten to that point in the story, but like you make this migration from the suburbs to your homestead, right? And that's a big lifestyle shift as well. So I'd love to hear that journey.
Yeah, well, we always romanticize things. Like, I mean, I was sitting there today on Instagram seeing some girl being like, 1 year from now, you can be in France, speaking French and having this bagel and asking for it in French. And I was like, yes, I definitely should do that. But like, we don't necessarily like then proceed to do that, right? So I feel like I've romanticized for a long time, and living in the country. But at the time we were living on a cul-de-sac in a suburb, and I still love that cul-de-sac and that suburb and the sweet community. There are definitely pros and cons to both. I don't think we'll ever go back. I love our life here. But like, man, I also love the suburb life. I can see how some people would really cherish it because I did. But yeah, so my husband was biking one day near the mountains. The mountain's actually outside my window from me looking. And there was a huge auction sign on the side of the road as he biked by, and it was beautiful land. And we had been thinking about building, because my husband's a builder, for some time. But I didn't think that I was looking at a lot that was like in a neighborhood, And he said, oh, this is really beautiful. Like, he came home and he's like, this is gorgeous. And I remember driving down the road to see it and thinking, I will never live this far out in the middle of nowhere to me. Like, this is just, but then I turned the corner and the mountains just stretched over, and I pulled all of my kids at the time. I think I was like pregnant and had 3 really young kids. And we like trudged up the hill to the top and looked at the mountains. And I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. This is definitely amazing. And it was very scary, but, it was kind of a why not? People do crazy things all the time. And, why not us too? And people do way crazier things than getting land out in the country too. So we went to the auction a couple weeks later. It was definitely a little scary. But we ended up winning the land at auction, and then we started the process of the build. And then from there, it's just kind of like one foot in front of the other. Like my husband's not in love with any animals. So what I do is I like sneak it in. So like, in fact, sometimes quite literally, sometimes he opens the door and he's like, why are there like 15 chickens in our laundry room, But yeah, so eventually we just went from small to big. So like it started with chicks that he was like, okay. And then it was like cats, and then it was rabbits, and then ducks. And, now I just acquired 2 sheep that I love. In fact, I'm going to put I have an underground fence at several acres. I'm going to try that on my sheep today and see if they can literally free range the whole property on like a dog collar. Wouldn't that be amazing? And then they could be like my free ranging pet sheep. I hope it works out.
Like an electric fence, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, and they can just roam about and then...
I know, because I have this terrible habit of feeling bad for them in like their smaller area and opening the door. And then my husband and son are like, why did you do that hours later? And I'm like, but look how happy they are, because they just run and jump and they're so cute. And then we have to like go catch them. So anyways, this might help. I don't know. I'm a problem maker is what I'm hearing myself say.
Oh my gosh, you want to just see your sheep happy. What's your end goal with this sheep? Like, what is their role on a homestead?
Well, they're baby doll sheep. So they're endlessly cute if you've seen their faces. And that might be the end there. But and like I said, so between my 2 accounts, TikTok and Instagram, I have about like 650,000 followers now, something like that, which may go down after TikTok goes down to quite a bit more or less, I mean. But so that was my pull. I was like, then I can video them being adorable. See, so maybe that'll be the end value, or we might breed them and sell them. They technically are good for mowing. Like you can walk like that. Like I have a movable portable sheep tractor. And if you had them in a suburb, like on normal sized plots, then you could have them like mow your whole yard, which would be cool, and just move them. Apparently their fertilizer is amazing. So we have a big garden now. So I might use that for a little bit of compost. Mostly they're cute. I don't think I want to eat them. At most, I think I would breed them, which would be pretty simple. We have a wether and a female right now, so it would not be hard to acquire more and maybe do that. We'll see.
And the investment of cuteness for content creation is not lost on us. Okay, we totally understand. Yeah. This is why we have kids. I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding. But totally understand. Love that. I can't wait to check out these sheep, by the way. And yeah, the TikTok thing. That's like 5 days from now, I think.
What's happening with that? I don't even know. I don't have a TikTok. Is it officially going away?
I don't know. I don't know what'll happen. I think I just saw the news like an hour ago say that some place in government just pursued more. Like they were just like, yes, I do think it should go under. Like they heard several lawyers for TikTok. So I think it will go under, maybe. Wow. Which would be interesting because it's also a good testimony. Like I wrote a book. One of my rom-coms was Famous for a Living because my life was kind of turned upside down around all of this experience in building a house. Because it kind of dawned on me forever to write books, you have to have a social media presence. And so it's a catch-22 though. How do you have a social media presence to try and sell your books when you don't have books out, right? Yeah. Which is like, how do you do that? And they're kind of like, well, that sounds like that's a you problem, right? That's how the publishers deal with that. And you're like, oh, great. So I've been like circling this forever. And as my editor would call it, she's like, writers, it's like a incestuous relationship with writers, because the only people following writers are like other aspiring writers. They're like, you follow me, I'll follow you. We'll talk about our random books. And I was like, I need to get away from that, because it's not even who you're trying to sell your books to. Those aren't even necessarily like your readers. And so it kind of dawned on me around this time that it turns out a lot of people have social media and look at like houses and house builds and stuff. And I had no idea that was like out of my realm. So I started sharing about our house build when that dawned on me, and told my husband, hang on, like, I think there's a half a chance I could like actually get brands maybe to sponsor or pay me to build our house if I showcase our house. So I changed my title to Our Friendly Farmhouse, away from Melissa Ferguson Writes or whatever I had before, and started posting house content. And that was super, it made such a difference in my life. It was huge because it's valuable for more of an audience. And so I don't know, that kind of changed my life though, because then all of a sudden content creation is such a viable option for income that is kind of insane, but it's also so volatile. Like it can go away tomorrow, as we see with TikTok. So it's like, it's like great, but dangerous. And you got to be careful not to put your, all your hopes and dreams or even like all your weight on it, you know?
Yeah.
I just confirmed to make sure I don't say anything that's incorrect. But last I had seen, I do follow a lot of like news and business acquisitions and such, is that the most likely candidate, because the stipulations is that if TikTok isn't acquired by someone other than who owns it now, who seems or may not be affiliated with the Chinese government. I guess that's the typical or the original claim as to why it should be banned in the United States. Okay, but Kevin O'Leary is currently most likely suitor for TikTok, as it stands like 3 hours ago on Yahoo Finance. So he's if you don't know who Kevin O'Leary is, he's the Mr. Wonderful bald guy on Shark Tank. So the guy that invests and buys businesses. You might have seen him on the news before, but he is currently offering $20 billion for TikTok.
Wow.
$20 billion.
Wow.
You may be fine if O'Leary is to come through. Then Melissa, I think
Maybe.
TikTok may live
I'm
to see another day.
I'm going to reinstall that on my phone and start paying attention to it again. I'd already like offloaded it. I'm like, all right, I'm mentally done there, man.
Hey, you know what? I think something as valuable as TikTok is, just my business brain says it would be shocking that it doesn't work out in some capacity. I would be shocked. Now, it doesn't. I mean, we're 5 days away from the date that was initially. Today is January 10th, and the 15th is supposed to be the day. So maybe people listening to this already know, but anyhow, that's the most recent news for your information.
That's fascinating. Well, we will see, won't we?
We will see. It is crazy. It's a crazy world we live in for sure.
Yeah.
I'm interested. So you've got this homestead, you've got a garden. What do the chores look like in your family? The delegation of tasks. You work writing. Is your husband work? Does he stay home? What does his life look like? That sort of dynamic. What does that look like for your family?
Yeah. So my husband's a builder. He gets up and goes. But really, it's not too bad. Every morning, my kids have, in fact, you can see it here. This is their responsibility chart that they come and they like check it off with like a dry erase marker. But the bottom one is their morning chore that they have to do. And so for my daughter, it's, feeding the cats. And for my son, it's taking care of like getting the eggs and feeding the chickens and the duck. And then together we end up, doing other things around. But like, it's amazing how you can, between watering and feeding systems and fencing systems and solar powered chicken coop opening and shutting, it's amazing how little work I think it can take. Now, some things take a ton of time if you invest in them, but it's really not too bad for us, and just becomes a little part of your routine, and then you go on, in your day.
I love that you have this chore chart like in a beautiful golden frame. It's just like so stunning. They're like, oh, let me check this off really quick. So you're saying like you've automated a lot of things, so it kind of just runs smoothly. I still think even though like that runs smoothly compared to the average suburban home, there's probably a lot more on your guys' to-do list than like what Joey and I might have to do, right? We're not even thinking about chickens in a coop or sheep in a fence or
so that's true. I do think the best thing you can do is invest the time and the mental energy and really the assets for it in the beginning. You put your resources and time and energy into doing it right in the beginning, and it will pay off in making it easier in the end, right? So like I have 8 really large raised garden beds, and I was driving the skid steer and was filling it. I decided to take a shortcut and was trying to fill the soil that I had gotten some compost. And in doing that, in my haste, I ended up putting like all this grass seed in it on accident. And so I had the worst weeds all year. And so now I have like bags and bags of soil. That was my Christmas present, was dirt. Literally dirt from my husband.
Like, yay.
I know. Bags and bags and bags of it to put in. And I'm so excited that I'm just going to be like, really careful in how I plant this year with the seeds and do it right. Instead of saying, oh, okay, we're going to overstuff because I think it should be fine to make the packets worth it. No, it was super crowded. It was really hard to weed. And now I'm learning, I got to take my time in the beginning and do it right. And that goes with housing, getting the right chicken coop, which I could talk forever, I feel like, on what takes the right chicken coop and for beginners. But, and the free ranging and just getting all those systems in place in the beginning makes it way easier at the end,
How much property are you on?
We're on, technically we're on 40.
Okay.
We own 10 and we're trying to get the other 30.
That sounds
which
awesome.
We'll see. Yeah.
You guys do any hunting?
Yeah. My husband has been doing it in my backyard the past week and a half. So I'd have to say to the kids, like, don't run out the back, stop going outside the back. Daddy's got his bow and arrow. And then the kids and I would like watch from the window and like text him while he's out there, and we'll be like, the deer's on the left, the deer's on the left. So, anyways, he's a really bad hunter, but he does hunt.
Oh, I love that.
Has he hunted his whole life, or is it just when you guys moved here? Is it recent?
He's really getting into it recently. And we're also very close to some amazing, like some of the best in the world trout fishing.
No way.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Like fly fishing?
Yeah. And so it's been fun. We're really into fishing now. So
I dig it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think that's funny. Joey shoots his bow in the backyard just for target practice because we do live in the suburbs, so we can't hunt here. But like, I do have to tell the kids, like, no playing in the backyard.
I know.
Like your dad's flinging arrows, and we're very cautious about that. It's like something I think about every day. But it is just funny to be like, a weapon is being discharged in the yard. Like you can't go out there.
Yeah.
Wrangle all the kids inside. That's not a sentence I ever thought I would say.
I'm sure your backyard neighbors love you.
They actually, I go back and forth as to like, do they support it or not? They seem to be like pretty impressed with it.
So to be clear, so that people don't think I'm endangering people here, okay? We have directly behind us a woods, and then beyond that woods, so there's a hill and there's woods, and then beyond those woods, there's a large field, probably 5-6 acres of field. And then beyond that, there's like woods.
It's like a meadow.
And a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we have no direct behind us neighbors. So I'm shooting into a hill of woods. Just so everybody knows, I don't shoot at houses. We do have neighbors to the side of us, again, which I'm shooting very clear from and not even in their direction. And they do sometimes walk out to like walk their dog like in the driveway, which is very weird to me. And like, anyhow, and I'll just be like, how's it going? Right. They will then say like, get anything? They make a joke or something, right? Because I'm shooting in the backyard, but I don't think they mind. I don't think they mind too much.
No, all you got to do is share a little bit of jerky once you get some, and then
something,
you're all
right?
good.
Give them something. Absolutely. 100%. I love that. So trout fishing, we're hunting. You're looking to acquire an extra 30 acres. So do you have woods on your property?
We have like 2 trees, literally.
Yes.
That's it. And we just put trees on either side of our driveway. But I think it was an old farm. And so it's just really cleared, which is awesome because we love our view. And we have like no mosquitoes. So that's very nice. Although we also have chickens and they're so good. I see them like literally eat bugs out of the air super fast. But did you know that about chickens, by the way?
Snapping bugs out of the air? I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did
They can,
not.
if you Google it, and you can see like chickens are known for like eating up to like 200 ticks and spiders in an hour or something crazy like that.
Amazing.
Yeah. So anytime we free range our animals, but anytime I'm like, that's enough of pooping on my porch, I'm super tired of it. You're going in the run. So then when they go in the run for a few days, all of a sudden I'll see like black widows and ticks or something, and then I'm like, release them. And when I release them, we never get them. Yeah, it's amazing. So
you're talking like black widow, like the deadly spider that could kill you, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
and brown recluses.
You got those just like chilling around.
Do you not?
No.
Everybody does.
No.
What? No.
Oh yeah.
That's a Tennessee thing. That's a southern thing. We do not have those here.
I once had a brown recluse infestation in an apartment. 500 of them. There was a whole infestation. We had to move out. They had to take everything out of our apartment and like basically had to burn it all. It was fascinating.
We have brown recluse in Ohio because we live in Ohio,
but not in our area.
But we don't have. We do have them in our area. I mean, like you can find them. They're recluse, right? They like to hide. They're not like going to come out in the open in the daylight. That's why they're called that. Now, black widows, I don't believe we do. At least I've never heard of someone seeing one in Ohio, and I've never run into one. That's for sure. And if I have,
do you have copperheads?
We do not.
You don't have copperheads?
No. We used to own a place at least my family did, in Tennessee on Lake Norris. And we had copperheads there. We had some scorpions. Never saw a black widow there, but I never considered the black widow scenario though.
Yeah. No, they're definitely there. We all, I think I talked to 4 friends in a week and we all were like, wow, we all had to kill a black widow like in our garage or whatever this week. And I was like, all right.
It just becomes normal. She's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, she's like, whatever, poisonous spider, I'm over it.
Whatever. We got a hospital. We'll be all right. But
my gosh. I love that. Wild. Okay, so I want to hear more about your things that you've learned in your 9 years of mothering, because I just love that you appear to be someone who like very much goes with the flow and is always learning new things. Like the fact that you jumped into writing and are now about to release your 5th or 6th book, right? And then you are you move from the suburbs to a homestead and you're adding animals slowly but surely. And I just think that posture is not one that's super common. So I'd love to hear just how you are viewing how you're making your everyday work for you, having so many different plates that you're spinning, and maybe if there's like some mindset things that you have going on. I would love to hear some of your like nitty gritty there.
Yeah. Well, that's a super nice compliment, by the way. I have not thought of myself that way, and I'm going to take that with me.
You should. Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks. So yeah, I was on TV a couple days ago and they informed me there that it was my 9th book that is coming out in February. And I said, that can't be right. And then we counted and it was right.
Amazing.
So several books in and juggling. I will say I hit, after my 4th child was born, it was very stressful because I got COVID right when it was scary time, and from that developed cholestasis. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it put me into a very scary emergency. She must be delivered right now, stillbirth risk. And she delivered, and that was great, but I was very, very ill. And so we started off with a really, really high stress moment right there. And it was a beautiful, beautiful year, but it was also really hard. And I remember telling my husband a few times saying, I need help. Like, I don't know what I can stop at this point, because I literally have contracts with literal deadlines. I have people whose others' jobs are relying on me fulfilling my jobs. and to keep their machine working. But I'm also now homeschooling. And how do I figure out jumping into that and get that going? And I have this fourth baby and I love her so much and I want to give her my everything too. How do I, and I want to provide healthy food, for my family, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And it's like, I don't know where to cut. And I remember kept saying like, I don't know where to cut. And eventually I just felt like, you could always take it like, well, I just need to like take a moment here. I just need to take a break here. But I got to where I was so stressed and I was so regimented to try and handle the duties that I needed to do, that I remember I literally would even take my thoughts captive to, if I was going to bed, it wasn't like I could freely think. I was like, I had to think about my next book. How am I going to put that scene together? How am I going to rewrite this? How am I going to do that? And then I'd wake up and I'd be like that same charged energy. I got to think through this. I need to do this. And I had no downtime. And eventually my husband came home and it was like I was crying in the laundry room, like behind like the sorting baskets. And he was like, hey, Betty. And I was like, I think that was a moment where I realized and told him pretty firmly, like, I really genuinely need some help to like working through this. And so he was like, okay. So we hired a tutor basically, who I love and adore. And she comes a total of 8 hours a week. She comes, 2 hours from 8:30 to 10:30, Monday through Thursday. She also does an hour of piano. So I guess 8:30 to 10:30 plus 8:30 to 11:30 one day, 4 days a week. And it's for those 2 hours. She helps them with core subjects, English and math. And I go off and I like race to write my book. And it's amazing how 8 hours a week was literally like all it took to completely get me back in line mentally and really get me like calmed down and way better and healthier. And it's like, and in the scheme of things, honestly, we spent a year putting my kids in private school, 3 kids, 2 kids. It was 2 kids who were in kindergarten. And homeschooling and having a tutor come for 8 hours total, helping with those core subjects, is way less than it would have been to have even
cost.
2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a cost there, but like way less and super helpful. And so I think having no illusions about, I think it's good to be very open about saying, I get help, like I have cleaners who come help clean my house and they're amazing every 2 weeks. And that is huge for me because I just don't have time to be able to be making the healthiest meals plus. So I think that's how I was able to do it.
I love hearing that because it's not just about the 8 hours. Now, is having more time helpful? Sure. But sometimes there's a limit to how much we can fill our cup with responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a reality where we have a newborn that's in the studio with us like right now. If you're watching, Elizabeth this entire time is holding our 7-week-old baby. So that is reality. That is a responsibility that you're going to carry, that you're going to have. And having the responsibility and the pressure coming from your publisher, the powers that be, the people that are depending on you to help create content that's going to keep running the machine forward, that's putting the food on the table for other people. So however you internalize that responsibility, right, is going to be something that you feel. And just being able to offload the responsibility of, I'm also responsible for my children being successful someday. Now you can call it just like homeschooling, right? You can use that quick term. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I mean, you just do the subjects and it is what it is. And 8 hours, like, what do you mean? And it's like, no. Being able to sigh and be like, somebody that's coming in this house that is fully dedicated, that is fully focused, that is giving 100% for 2 hours straight to push my children forward, that can give me a debrief and say, hey, so-and-so is doing this in mathematics and doing this in English or doing this, right? Can just create a major like comforting feeling that can allow you to free up creativity so that when you're working on something else, having 8 hours, you might not have, I'm sure you did, right? The 8 hours was very helpful, but I think it's a big deal for people, parents specifically, those responsibilities can be very heavy, very heavy.
I agree.
Oh yeah, for sure. And especially when it comes down to, like, I feel like it's self-propelled what I've done. So my husband's a builder. So it's like, I didn't need to work. He could work. But I wanted to work, and I felt the creative outlet, and I've done years of committed to this. So like, I dealt with the guilt of like, I shouldn't let this stress me out. I'm choosing this. This isn't even so. Anyways, all that's to say, it worked out very much so because I could offload to someone I trust who is doing great, and she was in the home. So it's I feel so much better now than this time like 2 years ago.
Yeah. And how long, like when you had that initial conversation with your husband, when he kind of found you like crouching in the laundry room, could he have foreshadowed that? Like, did he see that coming before you saw it coming, perhaps? Or was this new information to him that you're like, I need some help?
Yeah, no, I will say, and no one's perfect. We've been married for 16 years and he's amazing in many, many ways. However, I do feel like we must be careful with our spouses because I had said verbally, I need help. And had said, I would like to do X, Y, or Z. These things need change. And he's so cognizant of how much things cost that he just kept being like, oh, I think you're fine. Oh, but look, you're fine. You're fine. And what's frustrating in marriage is that just becomes, so do I need to have an intense reaction in order for you to take it seriously? Because I'm not a crier. So it's like, do I need to like go way off the edge? Like, at what point will you take this seriously? And so unfortunately, I feel like that was probably a failure on his part. I mean, but that's okay. He has a million victories. I'm not trying to down him. But that was, what would have been a better plan is for him to take it seriously the first time I had said, hey, this is really hard. And for him to say, you know what, I hear you and I see you and let's make some changes, So that's okay. We live and learn.
That's really good. Just reflection though, that you can even say that and be aware of that. I think sometimes too, a trap I fall in as a mom and someone who's trying to do a lot is like, I want to let Joey know that I might be struggling, but I also like don't really want to accept help. And if it's like, okay, well, how can we help you? And I'm just like, I don't know. And I just shut down all the options. And I almost need him to be like, I think what you need is XYZ. And I'm like, oh yeah, that would make more sense. I think we even just had this conversation earlier this week about rhythms in our own home. And like, you know what, maybe we should come up with a slightly regimented schedule for our kids. We haven't jumped back into schooling 100%. So I haven't done like a full homeschool week with the kids yet since our baby's been born, but that time is coming very quickly. And I think if I were to roll in with just extreme chaos, it would not have gone well. And I probably would have been crouching in the laundry room. You know what I mean? So yeah, that I think that communication between spouses is not always so black and white and cut and dry. And so that's great that you shared that sort of insight.
I'd be curious to know the parenting value you've found shifting from the suburbs to the homestead. Are there like value adds there that you've identified?
Yeah, I do. For our family, I hesitate to say that because everyone has their own, I think I know people who literally have 4 kids in New York City and raise them. And I think,
100%.
Yeah, they can have an incredible childhood that way too. So, but with regard to our family, well, I actually ended up getting contracted with Tommy Nelson to write a children's book that's coming out in July. And it's our story and it's called Our Friendly Farmhouse. And I'm really excited because it told the whole story and I was able to oversee like the illustration, and the back of it has like pictures of our whole family as we did the build and sweet pictures. So I'm so excited. Awesome. And I got to say bye Melissa and her children because my daughter's like very literary and like she really put in a lot toward it. Anyways, so but I think about that book, and actually what comes to mind as you say it is like I didn't even realize the extent of how much it made a difference in our lives with regard to both freedom and entertaining. Until I really saw the pictures in the books and was like, wow, this was just so different than when we were in our little cul-de-sac in the suburb. Like we've hosted so many things regularly. I would have like until last week, I would have a weekly every Wednesday, like, oh gosh, it was like 7 families would come over for a Bible study, like a mom and kids, but that equaled like 40 to 50 people in my house, But when you have outside, when you have all that land, there are kids on dirt bikes, there are kids, chasing chickens, there's kids playing over here, playing basketball, there's some kids on a trampoline, there's kids gardening tomatoes. And I can't tell you how many times, there's so many times where kids would come over, families would come over, and then we'd end up playing like, they'd all get to see, oh, we have baby chicks this week, or, oh, let's go, like, we've got ducks and let's go put them in the sink and let them swim around or whatever. Like, so much exposure for all these kids with regard to the animals and how to take care of. It's not just my kids, but it's all of these friends that have come over time to help with. Just yesterday we had some kids over and our sheep were escaped, probably my fault. Mm-hmm. And, but like the mom who was over, she was looking out the window as all the kids were trying to like wrangle and figure out how to they were circling and there were banners and they're like flags and, whatever. And they're like trying to get these sheep as these sheep are like super beating them right around the house and everywhere. And she just was like, I would pay someone for this. This is amazing. Wow. It's like free, like running their energy out and having all this time out in nature. And it's just, they'll spend hours and hours and hours outside. So I do think the plus is that it's easier to be technology free when you're out like this, I think, versus there's just less activity. So you got to work harder to be more creative with your kids, I think, and just be more diligent and focused. Cause it's an easy activity with kids to say for them not even to think about watching TV or anything because they're, going out to do whatever chore with the chickens or go help me make whatever with the bread or go, whatever, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about all the stimulating activities I did with my parents that I kind of semi-enjoyed, but were also very educational for me, they always stemmed from a problem. This is kind of why I asked, right? Whenever you live somewhere where problems are frequent, it's an opportunity to grow, right?
Yeah.
Like let's be honest. And so I was the quick grab for my dad whenever we needed the water heater went down. We had to go, fix the water. And it almost like was helpful that my dad was so cheap because it was like, we could buy a new water heater and have someone that does this for a living install it, or me and him could sit out there for like 6 hours and get it to work for another week, and then we'll pay the guy to come out and get it right. And so it was I don't know if that actually ever happened, but we would definitely do that. And it was like, hey, the weed whacker broke, and we've had this weed whacker for 20 years, and we have to readjust the fuel pump and pull the line out, and we have to adjust the line to make it fit. Like, I can remember these things very specifically, and you get some of these learnings when you have like a mission or an objective or something that you're working towards. And I do think that nature and being surrounded by it causes that to happen much more often. You live in we live in the suburbs here. And so, like if it snows heavily, there's opportunity for some outside play, and, we have to shovel the driveway, and, there's some fun there. But when we would go visit my grandparents, or my grandfather growing up, and he lived on a bunch of property in upstate New York, it was, we're going to go explore the woods, and it's hunting and going out. And if you harvest an animal, now we have to process this animal. We have to cook this animal, and the excitement of that, the challenge of that, the work that comes with it. There's so many things you sit there and you learn with your parents, but then like by the end of the day, you're exhausted. And the idea of playing video games or whatever, it wasn't even, we didn't think about it. It wasn't that we were missing out because, oh man, dad told me I have to do this now. It was like, dad and I are going to go, he's going to let me use the blowtorch, right? To solder this pipe. And I loved that. And so I think the idea of a problem, being that, Melissa loves to let the sheep out of the pen, right? Be it whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's fun, right? It's responsibility. It's important, right? I have to get that sheep back. As much as it's like kids, putting a posse together to go get the sheep, it's also like, hey, I need your help. And they feel important. They feel like they have responsibility, and they're going out to stretch themselves in a way that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And so, you might not get that if you're in a much more, kind of like cookie cutter, like living quarters. And so it's seeking that out, I think, is important. That's why I asked if there's hunting, because I think hunting is for people that maybe do live in the suburbs, seeking that out. It's helpful. It's helpful to go camping, to go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it seems like this like tacky, like parental move, but in reality, it's, you're kind of like seeking out problems, right? Seeking out challenges and opportunities to give responsibility for your kids to solve a problem on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, that's, I think that's totally kind of what I was looking for. You obviously experienced that. You got animals, they're going to cause problems, right? They don't obey.
No, and I create the problem too, where obviously with the sheep, but I'm just saying like any space, like let's say this is your day is like a circle and it's full because you're like figuring out chickens, you're figuring out ducks, and then you're like, oh no, now the chickens that I chose to get have this sudden random parasite. How do I solve that? So then you're figuring out how to solve that. But the second you figured out fully how to deal with chickens and it's kind of like on autopilot, now I'm like, wait a second, we should get some bees. Bees sound good. Let's get bees. So now I'm like, let's get bees. And then let's get sheep. Oh, let's get more sheep. Now we need a giant fence for our sheep. Let's go build a fence for our sheep. And it's always, I've realized it's never ending. Well, for me, poor husband, he's like, it is never ending. But it's like, there's always like another interesting thing you can learn, another interesting like thing you can get into. And then once you know it, it's like clockwork. So it's not stressful. And then before you know it, you want to learn how to do something else. So that's how I feel like it is out here. And how it's been for our family.
I'm taken away already. Just, man, live like Melissa and create problems. Let the sheep out, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna start saying that, kind of wake up in the morning. Like, what can we do in our suburb life that is the equivalent of letting the sheep out, right? So how can we create problems for our kids? And so the thought there is like, if you and every parent listening to this is going to know what I'm talking about. If you go to your kid and you say, I need you to clean your room, I need you to X, well, how much of a response are you going to receive?
Oh, I just had this conversation.
0, right? If you go to your kids and you start the conversation off now, it might fizzle quickly, right? But if you say, hey, I got a problem, what's the response typically like from your kids? Boom, they're locked in. What is this problem? Like, and it's like, we got to fix this. Now, if you say your room is a mess, you probably are going to lose them pretty quick. But the reality is that problems are definitely more exciting.
You know, it's funny too. Another equivalent to like let the sheep out is like our, when you have kids with wide age ranges, right? So our teenager wants to host a sleepover, and all week I have been drilling the kids: keep your bathroom clean, keep it clean, clean it up. Like, why is there toothpaste on the counter? Are we 4? Like, what's happening? And you know what happened is a deep cleaning of the bathroom because, we're hosting tomorrow. And it's like, you know what? You want to let the sheep out? You invite people to your home, and then you're going to learn real quick which rooms in your house need cleaned and prepared, and your kids are going to get on board because they're like, oh, this is like a reflection on me, and I do want to have welcome guests, and I do want them to feel comfortable, so yeah, I will keep my space clean. It's like, that's a problem you created. You didn't have to let anyone in your home. You could live in your dirty, filthy mess all day long, but if you want to put a little bit of pressure on the machine, then you got to invite the people and have them over and host. And our house is never cleaner than when we're about to host people. And the months that it is just a pigsty is when we haven't done we haven't been hospitable. And
entertainment does it for sure.
It does. And that's just like you would think it'd be the other way around, like your house would always be messy. And it's just not the case because you put pressure on the machine and you will rise to the occasion. So that's so funny. Let the sheep out. I'm curious so you're writing this new book, or it's actually coming out in February, you said?
Mm-hmm. February 11th in the UK. No. March in the UK. February 11th in the US.
And what have you learned through now writing 9 books? Like, does that process get easier each time? Does it remain the same? As your kids get older, are you involving them more in your work? Like, what does that part of your life look like?
Yeah. Well, I definitely involved my 9-year-old and daughter especially, and the others with regard to the children's book and the illustrations and the word choices and things like that. But with regard to adult sweet rom-com, that's definitely over their head a little bit. Like, that's not their forte. But so I think for now, what I've learned is and this is very like writer's world conversation now, but what I've learned is to expect the roller coasters of emotions. They don't throw me so much. So, you know, you have a deadline of what you're supposed to be writing. And I tell you, I can expect some days I'm going to think I am brilliant. And then other days I'm like, this is so bad. It will be like, I had an editor one time through edits of my second novel, The Cul-de-sac War. She was like, she said on the sidelines of the developmental edits, like, from the ash of this book will rise a great book. And I was like, oh my gosh. Burn. And it was just, yeah, I know. It was just the most intense way to say, like, your book is awful. We need to like do a complete rewrite. So yeah, that was that 9 books in though. Yeah, so now I'm used to it. There's like ups, there's downs, there's I don't know. It's okay. And well, and I'm faster each time, and so that's been really encouraging. As you gain confidence, you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna be okay. I'll survive it. So, and I've really gotten used to, which is also very valuable and was the takeaway in my book, A Famous for Living. I've really gotten used to rejection. Like, I'm really good at it now. So I'm really good at people not liking me, or like somehow taking my book and then decide this is like, we hate this person. And that's very valuable to have as like, because you need that. Like, I was such a people pleaser, and it's such a valuable thing to both using social media to create content, and you get a lot of negativity there, right? Like, you know, some people are like, I wish you would die because you showed a video of that milk on the table. And it's like, how darest you? And it's like, oh, geez. And, you know, things that used to throw me, I'm able to like emotionally handle a lot more. So I think that writing books has really helped me with that and be a stronger person, I think.
How did you get over rejection? Like, is it just the practicing of it? You have to just go through the pain every time? Or
just get rejected a million times, and eventually you'll be like, oh, okay, we're okay. But with rejection also comes, you know, a lot of acceptance and a lot of kindness. But I think you learn not to take the kindness. You learn to just rely on yourself, right? Like, you know what you're supposed to be doing. If you know that is your moral calling, carry forth, go do whatever that is, whether it's homeschooling your kids or working this job or, you know, whatever it is. Go forth with confidence and don't rely on other people's praise or rebukes for your own self-esteem or decision-making.
That's good. Even though you said that was very specific to writers, I feel like I go through seasons of like, oh, things are going really well and I'm loving this, to the very next day or the next week of just like, what am I even doing? What is this? You know? And it's so, Joey gets so exhausted by it. He probably thinks I'm like an emotional lunatic, but I just think when you are constantly creating things out of nothing, which, you know, is a lot of your putting yourself on the wearing your heart on your sleeve, whatever the expression is, you become sensitive to people's words, right? And so when they do say negative things, or when you feel like things aren't, oh, that podcast, you know, I wish I would have edited this part, or I wish the audio would have been better, or I wish this post would have done better, or whatever the ridiculous little like businessy task is, it's so hard to separate yourself from your work and your value. And I find that to be incredibly challenging. So I'm interested to learn from you. And I like that you just said that, of like, it's a natural thing, and almost like forecasting it, of like, I know I'm going to go through these emotional roller coasters as I'm writing this book. The same thing could probably be said for several business owners or content creators. Like, listen, over the next year, it's going to be a roller coaster. I know I'm going to have seasons of like, things are going great, and then seasons of like, ooh, I feel tired by this. And so I think that's just nice to hear that you're also feeling that too. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I will say, in the author world, authors will ask me, or like my publisher or whatever, they've come back for advice, because in the author world, you don't usually, you know, I mean, I remember if you got 2,000 followers on Instagram, you are like super pumped, right? In the reader world, author world. And so, you know, my publisher has come back and even had me teach marketing things to our big publisher, to all the authors, about like, here are some tips and tricks or whatever. And I think success on social media so often comes from a willingness to like know what you're supposed to do, know what you want to do, but then to be like willing to look completely stupid to everybody else and just, like lip sync in a paper mustache like I have before while dancing. Like I look back on my old stuff and I'm like, I created like a random love story of teddy bears to music. That was my very first like Instagram, TikTok post. And I'm like, what was I thinking? But you know what? Who cares? And I just never look back. Like my books come out and I never read them ever. Like the second I send it in, it is done and it's time to work on the next thing because I don't want to deal with self-doubt, And the same goes with looking at your old posts. I mean, obviously, I think there's value in looking into something for, can I learn from this, But if it affects you, like my editor finally said, never, ever, ever look up any more reviews. You are forbidden, Melissa, to go on NetGalley and look at your reader reviews. So I was forbidden and that helped. And I was like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's so funny that you sort of like wash your hands of it once it's done, because I have gone over and over and over and over old books of like, this needs to go back to an editor and da 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 da. And Joey's just like, dude, this has blessed so many families. You forgot a period on one sentence. Like you need to calm down. And I go into this hyper perfectionist mode of like, I'm not qualified to do this. And this missing period is proof that I'm not qualified.
It's proof.
and I know it's ridiculous, but it really happens. And I'm gonna take your advice and just not look back and focus on the forward thing. I love
like you
that.
said, wash your hands, move on. There you go.
Wash your hands of it. I love that. Cool. Anything else that we've like dabbled in so many different areas of your life, but I just love that you're sharing your bits of wisdom because I think it's going to resonate with people. Anything else that you had on your mind?
I was just curious to jump into some of the books as we kind of transition on our way out here. And so you have 9. We can go through all of them if you like, but I know that I would love to touch on for sure the one that's coming out the most recently. We'll save that for last. But first and foremost, the book that kind of you started with, the one that you were writing on the blow up mattress that you got rejected for 4 years with, and then you were able to kind of like get it through and publish it. It's a romance novel.
No, that one was not. That one has not seen the light of day.
Oh, that one hasn't. You didn't publish that one.
I wrote 2 books that didn't end up seeing the light of day before I got my first book contract.
Oh.
So yeah. So those are hidden.
No kidding. Okay, so first book that you sold.
Mm-hmm. What was that one?
What is that book?
Okay, well, I'm going to scooch back and I'm going to grab it because I have it here. This one is called The Dating Charade. Okay. And it was my very first one. I went through the roof. It ended up in Target, which was very exciting because Thomas Delson doesn't always, they have a very small list of books that can end up like, oh gosh. I mean, it's very small, 30 romances maybe at a time that can end. So there are about 2 million new books that come out a year. So when you're thinking the competitive space in which those stores are, it was super exciting. So this one's The Dating Charade. We were fostering at the time that I wrote it. And so it ended up being about fostering. And it was just like a sweet rom-com meets the Brady Bunch. So it's like a woman goes on a great first date with a guy and but after the first date, she ends up with 3 kids. Well, and she was a teen director at after school program, just like I was. Yeah. So I was able to utilize that. But she ended up with 3 kids that she ended up having, like, basically fostering unofficially after that first date. And he did too, through his own scenario. So then they're both hiding from each other. They had a great first date, but then they end up hiding. Each of them have their 3 kids, and like funny married problems happen. And it's just your typical, like, I tend to write like you've got mail vibe is kind of how I say it. It's going to be like your PG rom-coms, nostalgic rom-coms. So that was that very first one, way back when, that published in 2019.
Wow, oh my gosh.
So cool.
So the acceptance of this book is a go. Was that an email, a phone call, a letter?
Oh, that book. Oh, it was very stressful actually. Because I spent 4 years in that first book, and then I went to that writers' conference. I got rejected for several days from literary agents. Then I won that I was wearing my son, who's 13 weeks at the time, in the back, getting ready to like leave, you know, like super failure, literally packed our bags. My husband was with me and it was like, okay, we're going to peace out and like start our drive back and kind of reassess. And then they were like this big conference award for the several hundred people who were there. They started reading the words of the conference award winner of the person's book. And I realized, it took me a long time, but I like realized those are my words. Like, that's my book. Wait a second. And then they had me come to the front. I was still wearing my son and I got a check. And then that lady, one of the literary agents who just rejected me, literally walked up like I'm in a rom-com. And he was like, so you're going to send me that book, right? And I said, you just rejected me, right?
Oh my gosh.
But so a different agent from there, I was able, writing is so valuable in the querying stage of leveraging each. You get a little bit, you need to leverage it. So I won that award and used that to email the people, a literary agent, who then sent me to a different literary agent within the agency, and they took my work on and then proceeded not to be able to sell it for like 2 years straight. But then said, hey, have you considered writing romance? Romance is a big hit. And I said, no, I don't like romance. But then I said, well, hang on. I like You've Got Mail. And I said, I don't know, I'll give it a shot. And so I gave it a shot and I finished the second book. And then I learned at that point, with regard to rejection, you just need to keep on writing. Just write a new book. Don't spend 4 years on your book, baby, as I had done that first time. Just keep going. And so I finished that second book. He started to pitch it out. I also was pitching it out at writers' conferences. And I started working on my third book. And then I finished that book. And then right at the same time, a small publisher in London offered me a 2-book deal that with a small advance, but it was a decent publisher. And it was right when my dream publisher, which was Thomas Nelson, that's a part of HarperCollins, had expressed interest in my third book. And I remember my agent at the time said, talked to me on the phone, and he was like, a bird in hand is worth 2 on the bush. I think you need to take this contract, this 2-book deal. And I said, respectfully, I disagree. And I said, I will wait. And I did. And I took that risk because that was my dream, was to be with Thomas Nelson. And you really got to make a wise first step when you're going into traditional publishing, because sales affect future book deals. And the better the deal you can get, the more more power they have over sales, right? And so I ended up waiting, and they ended up taking me on for that 3-book deal. So that's how that worked out, which was a blessing.
That is so cool. And so 3-book deal, then those were 3 romance books. Is that correct?
Which I can't even stand the word romance. They're rom-coms.
I'm sorry.
We got to say rom-com because it's even more com than rom. I'm still cringe at romance.
I'm so sorry. I'm not in the space for
No, you're
often,
fine.
so.
Everyone calls it romance.
Okay,
I just am like, it's rom-com.
Melissa's gonna get off this and be like, that guy is just
romance. How dare he?
So the comedies with some romance books, you did 3 of those. So that's 3 out of 9, right?
Uh-huh.
And so then from there you continued in that category, because now you're in making children's books, right?
Right. So
is
then
this your first children's book that's coming out?
It's my first children's book. And then I just finished, it just got titled Without a Clue, and it's a rom-com murder mystery.
Ooh.
So, ooh, I like this reaction because I'm trying to figure out, my agent and I are trying to sort out, do I want to do this again? Is this going to be my new lane? And I can't decide because funny murder is really hard to pull off, I will say. I'm like, you guys, it's a dead body and he's like asking her out, you know? I'm like, well, this is awkward, but like, you know, I like it too. And it's a really fun plot to have with romance in the background. And honestly, I would prefer my characters be like able to fly, or like something exciting and fantastical. And so as they're not allowed to, according to the genre, and according to my agent, then I'm like, well, I'll give them something else interesting to focus on, which I guess is murder.
Hey, Mystery. It's the mystery part. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
We're big into like kind of whodunits. We don't do like creepy murdery stuff,
Yes.
but like whodunits are interesting. And my daughter, who's a huge reader, everything she reads is mystery. She loves a little romance in there. So
Yeah.
she will be all about that.
100%.
Well, that's interesting. So, well, I would love to pick your brain on that. My next idea is about 4 literary agents who own a literary agency like right next to Central Park in New York City, which actually is inspired by my literal agent it's a woman-owned literary agency next to Central Park in New York City. So I might be just copying them, but how cute is that? How cute would it be if they had like a rom-com? It's almost like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants for adults rom-com. Whodunit? I don't know.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to do that.
I'm into that. There's a great series. It's a TV show, and this is so derailing, and I promise we will let everyone know where they can find you. But it's called Magpie Murders. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's like a PBS publication or like show broadcast, and it's like a story within a story. So it's like a murder mystery, but it's about the author who's writing it because his death also happens in real life. And then while you're trying to figure out his death, you're also trying to figure out who done it in the book that he wrote.
Oh.
So I think you would love it. It's pretty clean and mellow. I mean, kids wouldn't watch it, but
is it funny at all?
Yes, it's a little quirky.
I love
it's like
quirky.
British. It's
British
okay.
TV. No, that sounds really fun. Anything British, I would love. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll have to note that.
Magpie Murders plug here.
Plug on the Homegrown Podcast, y'all. Like, we are a diverse group, okay?
Oh, my gosh.
That is
Melissa,
amazing.
where can people find you and your books? And then I want to get into this book that's coming out, when it's coming out, where they can find it, pre-order it, etc.
Okay, so they can find me at Our Friendly Farmhouse, OUR, our family farmhouse.
Got it.
No. Our Friendly Farmhouse. I just said family farmhouse. Our Friendly Farmhouse on apparently TikTok. Who knows?
Maybe.
But definitely Instagram or melissaferguson.com. I do have a newsletter I put out every month. And then I'm waiting to see if this is the time. My book comes out February 11th. And it's always like the 2 or 3 weeks before that my publisher will say, oh, by the way, we landed Sam's Club. It'll be in Sam's Club or Target or Walmart or whatever. So I don't know. I know for sure it'll be in Barnes and Nobles and some independent bookstores and maybe in some airports. I don't know. And obviously online. But yeah, that's where to find it.
Online meaning like your website, or online meaning like Amazon, or like just all across the board?
Anywhere. You can go in Target, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever.
And the name of it is that
it's called, It's called The Perfect Rom-Com. And it's literally starts with my story, but I twist it. It's like a twist on, have you seen 2 Weeks Notice? Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock.
Of course.
It's like a book lover's twist on that because she's an aspiring writer. And she has these big, humongous dreams to save her She teaches ESL like I did. So she teaches at an adult ESL place for immigrants and refugees. And her dream is to save it because it's failing. And so she decides to write a book to try and raise awareness and funds. And then she goes to this writer's conference with all her hopes and dreams. And then she fails miserably to the literary agent who turns her down and says some of the exact same things the super cool literary agent turned me down saying in real life to me the first time. But then she ends up correcting a mistake of one of his clients during that pitch session. And it turned out to be like completely dead on, but also it was one of the biggest rom-com writers at the time. So he takes her on as the ghostwriter for that person in exchange for her little project. And she ends up like skyrocketing the success as a ghostwriter. And suddenly they're like, wait a second, we can't let her go. And what's going to happen? So that's The Perfect Rom-Com, literary agent and writer.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, your work is inspiring. I love to hear other moms who are pursuing their passions and obviously just like crushing it. Also, the fact that you have cute little sheep and chickens and ducks like makes it so awesome too.
And possibly bees. We're not really sure on that.
Possibly bees.
I know. We'll talk next year and see.
She might be sneaking them in. We don't know.
They might just be like in the house.
Dude, I saw this Instagram of this house. Someone walked in and they walked out with like a mason jar and turned it. It was their hive and they turned it and perfect honey came out. And then they stopped it and went back in and it didn't mess with them. And I was like, that's the beginning. Now we need bees. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
It's the honey dispenser where the
Yeah.
bees are making the honey, and the learning French in France and eating a bagel that you ordered in French.
Sure, why not?
And we're all ready to go.
This is
Let's all
what
do it
Instagram
together.
and TikTok lead us to, guys.
I dig it.
We're pursuing the life we love. I love it. Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, so much for coming on today's show. We love it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
Thanks again to our podcast sponsors, Ancestral Supplements. The other things that we're using in our home, it really is just spotted all through the house. We love their protein powder. I love their mineral supplement. I, again, have taken their fish egg and their beef liver really regularly during my pregnancy, and their fem enhancement product is changing my life. So go check them out. Go to ancestralsupplements.com, and don't forget to use the code HOMEGROWN to save 15% off your order.
Melissa Ferguson left the chat.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably letting the sheep out right now.
She's letting the sheep out, y'all.
She's probably all jacked up. She's like running from her office. Get the sheep out. There's a problem. Come on, kids. let's get it going.
Let's create t-shirts.
Yeah.
Let the sheep out.
I feel like that would be like, a copyright infringement sort of situation.
We could co-collab.
Yeah. Let the sheep out.
Yeah.
Just split the profits.
Who knows?
On the let the sheep out t-shirts.
Anyways, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that, one, they're creating an environment for, one, homeschooling can be academic. I feel like this is something that does not get talked about enough. But also homeschooling is almost just like creating an environment for learning. And that is exactly what they've done in their house. And so I totally love that. Huge fan. We talked with Melissa for a little while afterwards, and what a great person. Really enjoyed her energy and positivity.
Yeah, she's super pleasant. Amazing. I'm excited for her new books, and I want to maybe do a mother-daughter book club.
That's super fun.
I think that would be really cute.
That would be super cute.
Because she'd be into it.
Friends, go check out Melissa. Go check out her new book and get it for your kids. Get them for you. She's got 9 of them, so it's plenty to choose from. She's crushing the game, and she's also an awesome person based on what I can tell. So definitely go check her out. Check out her books. Find her on Instagram. It was Our Friendly Farm.
Farmhouse.
Yeah. You can find us on Instagram. I'm at Joey Hazelmeyer. Elizabeth is at Liz Hazelmeyer at Homegrown _education. We have a store where we sell goods and things to make your life better. We've got lard dish soap, coffee, tea, sourdough tools, things to clean your body and your dishes, horsehair dish brushes.
Tallow cream, tallow body cream.
Get in there,
just
get you some stuff, shoptheh.com. Go check it out. It's awesome. We also have curriculum and books for sale as well for you to be continuing to pursue your education of real food and your...
You're
distracting me.
So big.
We've got Bo in the studio killing the game right now.
I'm sorry.
Go to homegrowneducation.org for meal plans, recipe books, curriculum for your kids. We have a Substack. We have a YouTube. You should watch us there. If you don't, you're missing out because Bowman's on the screen. Friends, until next time, that's a wrap.